Hello and welcome to another edition of Issues with JIDE. Here we'll talk about actions and inactions of those who shape our political and national landscape and how these impact us positively or otherwise. I'm Ibrahim Shita. Today on the show we'll talk about why the suspended EFCC chairman Abdulrasheed Bawa was arrested. Also, Asari Dokubo blast Nigerian military saying you are bloody oil thieves. In the course of the program, we'll take your questions, but first subscribe to our YouTube channel and drop your questions in the comment section. I have joining me via Zoom the maestro himself, Babajide Kolade-Otitoju. Good to see you again this Saturday evening, Bikil.
Yeah, good to see you, Brian.
Yeah, without further ado, let's get down to the issues for today. First, reactions have continued to trail the suspension of the former EFCC boss, Abdulrasheed Bawa, from office. Could you help us understand the very reason it was necessary for the federal government to do so?
There has been so many complaints and petitions accusing the EFCC chairman of receiving bribes in exchange for not arresting people who are being investigated by the EFCC. There has also been complaints that the EFCC, through its national chairman, had been harassing some politicians because they refused to pay bribes. So this kind of things need to be investigated. I know for a fact that for so long the issue of graft has smeared the name of the EFCC. A good number of its operatives live far above their means. And in all of this, it is extremely difficult to completely wash the hands of the chairman of the body from these infractions. One thing is certain: Nigerians occupying such critical positions like the EFCC chairman are not likely to receive bribe directly. But I believe that a thorough investigation cutting across the different departments in the agency, including, of course, the operations unit of the agency, will yield monumental corruption. This is the reality. And then I think also that when the government accused the EFCC chairman of abuse of his office, issues like disobedience to court orders must have come in, because where a court orders you to release property that you seized from a complainant, since you are not above the law as the chairman of EFCC, it makes no sense for you to continue to hold on to that property in complete disobedience to the order of the court. So that, in my view, amounts to abusing one's office. Another critical issue has to do with the EFCC under Bawa going against the 2004 Act that set up the EFCC to turn itself to a revenue collecting agency. There is nothing in the Act setting up the EFCC that mandates it to collect revenue on behalf of any agency of government. That agency of government, like the NDDC, for example, the EFCC is believed to companies operating in the Niger Delta from gas companies with the sum total of money collected in the region of 500 billion naira. There is nothing in the law setting up the EFCC that permits it to serve as a revenue collecting agency. How they came to be going around collecting revenue on behalf of the NDDC that is already neck deep in corruption is something that I find hard to understand. And as we speak, the EFCC has not accounted for the more than 480 billion naira that it is believed to have received on behalf of the NDDC, because a critical component of the funding of the NDDC is the 3% of profits of oil companies operating in the oil-bearing states, and of course gas companies. Now, EFCC has not accounted for the monies that it collected on behalf of the NDDC. They've not accounted at all, and they are supposed to account for the monies, account completely for the money, but they've not accounted at all. And when journalists ask this question, that how much have you received on behalf of the NDDC? Have you remitted what you have received? The angry reaction of the EFCC was that the NDDC had not complained. So does it mean that because the NDDC did not complain, then Nigerians who are aware of the fact that you infringe on the law by taking it upon yourself to collect revenue on behalf of the NDDC, Nigerians who know that you have infringed on the law have the right to ask questions. How much have you collected? Why did you even decide to go into collection of revenue for the NDDC in the first place? NDDC is the agency mandated by law to collect this money from those oil companies. But the EFCC took it upon itself to do that. I don't know whether from what have been collected, the EFCC officials, including the chairman, had been paid some percentage for monies collected. But this whole thing has remained shrouded in secrecy. There is no accountability. No one is stepping forward to say, oh, the EFCC helped us to collect the social amount from Shell. This is how much they collected from Saipem. This is how much they collected from other oil companies operating in the Niger Delta area. There are no words. No one is told that this is how much they collected. No one has been told whether there is an agreement to pay the EFCC some percentage for the money. I mean, for EFCC officials, some percentage for the money that they collected on behalf of the NDDC. So if indeed the NDDC agreed to part with some percentage of that money, it will then be clear that the motive behind contravening the act, the 2004 Act setting up the EFCC, is the desire to make tons of cash. So Bawa has to explain why he bypassed the law setting up the EFCC to turn the EFCC under its watch to a revenue collecting agency for one of the most corrupt federal government establishments, which is the NDDC. So there is a lot that Bawa has to explain while in detention. Hopefully, it will be brought face to face with some of the people who have accused him of collecting money from them. One thing that is said to be happening in the EFCC is that sometimes when there are many arrests that are made that are never made public. Some will go ahead, settle the EFCC officials, and then they'll be released.
Yeah.
That is why you see some EFCC officials living far above their means, far above the wages that they earn. So, and some of these people, sometimes even when they have paid some money, they still get harassed. These are the categories of people using some NGOs to attack the EFCC. You can see that the EFCC is being routinely attacked by some NGOs. It is politicians that are using some of those NGOs to attack the EFCC. And why are they doing this? Because in some cases, they will have paid money, yet the officials will still not stop harassing them. So to pay the EFCC back in its coins, they've been using using some NGOs to draw attention to some of the terrible things happening in the EFCC. I think that beyond Bawa's arrest, there is a need to sanitize the EFCC and make it good enough to be able to live up to its mandate.
Right.
And ensure that it becomes stronger as an organization that will be truly independent and would be free from political interference, because we can't run away from political interference in the affairs of the EFCC. Some of the people that they go after actually politicians opposed to the ruling party. Yes, some members of the ruling party have also been arrested, some have even been jailed. But the EFCC needs to be sanitized because corruption is evident in the EFCC, and the EFCC has to be made far more accountable than it is currently. You see stuff from people, and no one knows how some of the things seized end up. This has always been an issue. Where are some of the things that you have seized?
Right, Bikil.
Where did the money go?
So, how do you react to the insinuations by some critics that the suspension of Mr. Bawa would mean that those under investigation with allegations of corruption would enjoy some respite in this administration?
It's difficult for me to agree with that notion. There are people who have corruption cases that Bawa led the FCC refused to arrest. Of course, Malami, as the former Attorney General of the Federation, would only permit the EFCC to go after those that are not in his good books. This was one of the reasons why Malami had to quarrel with Ibrahim Magu, because Magu wanted to exercise some independence. Unfortunately for Magu, the man who guaranteed his access to the president was the late Abba Kyari, who came from the same state as himself. But once Abakari died, that access to the number one man, President Buhari, was lost by Magu, and Magu began to face all kinds of tribulations until Malame succeeded in getting him out of the EFCC. So I do not let the EFCC chairman clear himself of the allegations raised against him. Let him successfully wash his hands clean.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So
okay.
I believe that if you are not corrupt, you have nothing to fear. But
Correct.
there are still many people that they do not arrest. They show greater energy arresting Yahoo boys. They secure much more convictions against Yahoo boys than against the politically exposed persons. This is a fact. So we need an EFCC that is truly independent, that is reformed, that will go after corrupt people, that will be able to do diligent prosecution, because most of the time these politicians are taken to court and they escape because the EFCC will not do a thorough prosecution, so they will escape conviction. We've seen that happens again and again and again. But I must admit that they have a fantastic record against the Yahoo boys. But they are not the only people who typify corruption in our country. So we want to see the EFCC do a much better job than it does currently. But
absolutely,
let's between Emefiele and the EFCC chairman, we want thorough investigation to be conducted so that if they deserve to be put on trial, they will be put on trial.
Right. Fabian Akaise says the appointment of Bawa, a 40-year-old inexperienced administrator, to the rank of the EFCC chairman is one of the reasons why I'm opposed to appointment of young people to political office. They want money. Alarakmo Adewumi says, Mr. BKO, thank you for saying the truth. Bawa and other appointees of Buhari are fond of disobedient. They are fond of, I think they disobey court order. That's what he's trying to say. Fidelis Nse says, I like BKO's analysis, very insightful. Mike Oyayide says, it's a great breach of trust for the EFCC chairman to be found wanting. The executive should have a more thorough screening before appointing leaders of anti-graft agencies. Folashade Olarin says, corruption is endemic in Nigeria. Can you blame Bawa? Absolutely not, because he was handpicked by the corrupt people in power and came to power through the back door. He has to tell us what happened. Ayomide Sulaiman, which is the last comment I'll read before going to the next topic. Mr. JIDE, thanks for giving us latest expo. You are different from journalists getting their expos from social media. Right on. So I would like to state here that if you want us to take your comment, it's best that your name comes with your comment. We see that it's your name that is there. And then do not spam us with messages. It's very important. We will not just read your message if we can identify any face or name behind it. So let's change tact to other issues. A popular Niger Delta militant, Asari Dokubo, and the Nigerian army have disagreed over who is responsible for Nigeria's pervasive crude oil theft. Mr. Dokubo claimed that the military is responsible for 99% of crude oil theft in the Niger Delta region. This is a bombshell, isn't it, BKO?
Yes, I think there is a bit of exaggeration there. There is some measure of exaggeration, but no honest person familiar with the goings on in that area will say that everything that Asari Dokubo said was untrue. There is no doubt that some rogue elements in our armed forces are neck deep in the oil theft, in the premium grade armed robbery, that is growing on in the oil bearing communities. Everyone knows this. It's not what he said. It's not a new thing. What is new is the fact that he tried to blame them for 99% of the oil theft that is going on. Of course, that is an exaggeration. The security forces are involved in oil theft in our country. Key politicians are involved, especially some politicians from the Niger Delta area. They are involved in this theft. Foreign oil companies are also involved. Unfortunately for us, because of the way the oil pipelines are lying on top of swamps in the oil bearing communities, they are very, very accessible to oil thieves. This is industrial grade armed robbery that is going on in our country, and one of the best things that President Tinubu can do is to solve this problem once and for all. The whole world, all the countries that are major producers of oil, they've been making money since this unfortunate war began in Ukraine, the senseless war that Russia started in Ukraine. But it is Nigeria that is not making money. Look at the kind of money that Saudi Arabia has been making. Aramco, the national oil company of Saudi Arabia, have been making so much money, profit. They are happy to announce profit. In our own case, we are not making money because of oil theft. In the 2022 budget, it was projected that we will produce 1.8 million barrels a day. Oil thieves succeeded first in slashing it to 1.6 million barrels a day, and later it came down to as low as 1.3 million liters a day. That is about 500,000 barrels being stolen. There's no country that can permit that to happen. On the average, these oil thieves are making 100 million on a given day. I was looking at some of these statistics, because if they were to steal 100,000 barrels a day, then it means that they will be making $10 million every given day. You can imagine $10 million going into the hands of armed robbery. Of armed robbers. The theft of Nigerian oil is at a level that is unprecedented in any part of the world. We do not even know how much we export from our export terminals. Look at what Asari said. Asari said, let me read what he said. He said, what is happening in the Niger Delta in the past 8 years was unprecedented in the history of oil production anywhere in the world. The vandals do not only attack the oil pipelines, they have migrated from the pipelines and have gone directly to the oil well heads, and they take directly from the oil well heads. This is a crime against humanity because the people's livelihood is being destroyed. And every meter you see a naval houseboat or an army houseboat stationed. So the main culprits are the army and the navy, and there are notorious commanders who are known to be kingpins. Of course, the navy has come out to say, name names. People do not directly get involved who position security men in the area. who allow bloody civilians to steal on their behalf. How do you then mention the name of somebody who was not directly involved in the stealing? For me, this is not the first time that I've had something like this. The former governor, immediate past governor of Rivers State, accused the GOC in Rivers State of oil bunkering. He accused him. He mentioned his name. Wike mentioned this. I think it was General Saram also at that time. And the question he asked was, why should the chief of army staff of that time, General Buratai, allow somebody who is said to be a well-known oil bunkerer to remain in that critical position? Now, General Saram simply ignored him. I am not saying here that I have evidence that General Saram was guilty or was not guilty. And I didn't see General Buratai respond by saying, look, what you have said against my junior officer is wrong. But for a governor to have come out and pointedly accuse a general officer commanding of being neck deep in oil bunkering, the governor must have some facts. To have openly said that, he must have some facts. I've been told that soldiers, naval officers even lobby to be posted to some of those areas, Bonny, and some areas where we actually have export terminals, that some of these security operatives actually lobby, pay money to be posted to those places. To certain places, if it's not because you want to make money from those places. So we can't continue to kid ourselves that we don't know that this thing is happening. People in government are involved, senators are involved, House of Reps members are involved, security officials are involved, and there is a cartel that coordinates this oil theft. You can't steal 500,000 barrels a day if it is not organized crime. It is more than an organized crime. Absolutely. It is armed robbery of industrial proportion. This is how I describe it. This is armed robbery of industrial proportion, of industrial grade armed robbery. This is what we are seeing. And we have President Tinubu said from the beginning that he wanted that problem solved because he knows we are losing money. How can we be losing this kind of money? So we've got to find a solution. Make examples of rogue members of the armed forces who are involved in this, because the whole world knows that indeed security operatives are part of this stealing. The only thing is that Asari Dokubo clearly exaggerated by saying 99%. It can't be 99%. Other people are involved, politicians are involved, even foreign oil companies, they are involved because they can see that our country is so wide open to be looted. So if people can rustle cows, why won't they rustle your oil? If it's so easy to rustle cows in our country, why wouldn't they rustle your oil? So everything gets rustled in our country. And it's something that we have to do something about it. So if we truly want to attain prosperity as a country, we have to defeat this monster. And many people deserve to go to jail. Let us see the sanitation begin to happen. Let's see examples being made of people. Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu is a street smart person. I'm sure he has some information. And at the appropriate time, we will see him take action that will suggest that he's determined to put an end to some of the nonsense going on in our country. Why should people steal as much as 500,000 barrels of oil in a day? That
Yeah,
is
BKO.
the biggest organized crime that the world has ever seen.
Right, BKO.
On a given day, 500,000 barrels. No. It's not without official connivance, without the connivance of security forces. It is not possible for that level of stealing to happen.
Absolutely. King Joe Ogba says, I love this man, JIDE. He always hits the nail on the head, in as much as I'm not a fan of Asari Dokubo, but he's saying the truth. Marco Yaide says, Asari Dokubo has said that the barges used in this oil theft are very large and vessels remained and easily spotted. President Tinubu should concentrate on arresting these large vessels. Felix Akiode says, Asari Dokubo should not tar the whole military with corruption, but trust the president to tackle the rot. It is a task that must be done. Kennedy Joseph Kashmau says, the bottom line is that Nigeria is not working from all of these, EFCC, oil theft, etc. We don't know how much we export. Can you imagine that? But then, Mr. Dokubo, in the same breath, also hinted that President Tinubu hinted at President Tinubu sacking more high-profile Nigerians heading government agencies. He said, and I quote, Emefiele is gone, Bawa is gone, so more heads will roll. Do you feel he talked too much in this regard?
I agree that we have to arrest some more people. We have not arrested enough. The president has only just started work. We are happy that in just 2 weeks, people have seen the direction that the government is headed. People have seen that this man that many people thought will not be able to work, that will be too frail, will be too weak to work, will just be shouting Bala Blue all over the place. He is doing much more than saying Bala Blue. He's working, he's taking big decisions, big decisions that governments before him were too scared to take. And we can only pray that it will sustain the momentum, because it will take drastic steps to fix our country. There are many thieves out there that need to be arrested, because so much looting happened during the last administration. President Buhari, undoubtedly a very honest man with integrity, but a lot of the people that surrounded him were bare-faced thieves. And I believe that in the fullness of time, these people will be unmasked, and Nigerians will see clearly that these guys did not have patriotism at heart at all, and they were enemies of their country, because some of the looting that happened or they permitted to happen will show clearly that they actually hate our country, that they are enemies of our country. How can an individual steal 109 billion and he has returned 44 billion inside? That's the accountant general of a nation. Now look at what we are discovering with IPPIS. When ASU said we don't want IPPIS, there was nothing that the former Minister of Education and others didn't say. Now we are seeing the rots. We are seeing what they are doing with IPPIS. The unnecessary padding of salaries and all that, just for people to be able to steal through the IPPIS. It's been exposed now that the president has even ordered the suspension and then prosecution of some individuals, who are manipulating the IPPIS. So the truth, like a philosopher said, is like a mole. You cover the mole on one side and it comes out at the other end. It creates space for itself through the sand and comes out at the other end. That's the way the truth is. The truth is so by nature so self-evident. And we are seeing the truth now. The president only needs to do a lot more. He has to sustain the momentum. Somebody has already suggested that at least 10 officials in the last administration must be arrested. Senate former House of Reps member, Honorable Gudaji Kazaure, has said at least 10 persons must be arrested. I want to believe that more than 12 persons in the last administration need to be arrested. A lot of nonsense that happened, last minute looting and all that happened, they need to account. They need to account for what they have done. If they are found clean as a whistle, they should be left alone. But no one is too big to be investigated. So there's a need to investigate some of those ideas, some of those steps that were taken. Look at the nonsense that happened with the Nigerian air. This is a scandal of monumental proportion. And people are asking, when are we going to take a second look at this deal? So Hadisirika has to explain. We are not interested in his verbal war with the owner of Airpeace. No, he has to explain to Nigerians. How did an aircraft registered as belonging to Ethiopian Airways come to Nigeria in the colors of Nigerian Air? What happened? There's a lot on the table of Mr. President, and we can only pray for him to succeed in his task of changing our country. But I am confident that Asiwaju will change Nigeria. If there's something that I'm sure of, it is that Asiwaju will change our country. I was reading a South African newspaper. They were already calling him Mr. Go Fast. Because those big steps, those 3 steps that he took so early in his administration, they were not expecting it. Look at the way the NLC has been disarmed. If the NLC were to go on strike today, it's going to be a monumental failure. They've been thoroughly disarmed. It's the same government. The government was the first to say we are increasing salary of workers. They didn't wait for us for NLC to say you must do it. Tinubu was the first to in his meeting with APC governors that this is the time for us to do something about the salaries.
Amazing.
And the NEC meeting has already come up with proposals. So it's a country that is due for real change, not change simply mounted by politicians who do not know their left from their right. Real change, change that you and I can feel. Our country is due for that kind of change.
Absolutely, BKO. Absolutely. Let me read this comment and then we go home. Ayomide Sulaiman said, pray for President Tinubu because the cabals are looking for his death, but God will surely protect him. Dejuma Boutique says, my father, as a retired leader within the oil company, wrote a report about these thefts as far back as 1998. Kamar Ibrahim says, Buhari messed up, period. Ahmed Hamzat says, may Bola Ahmed Tinubu succeed. Julius Omorigbe says, changing senior armed forces, the forces leadership from the Niger Delta should be done immediately. Olusegun Dosumo says, the government should not allow these people to clean up and run. Don't let them know that they are coming for them, or else they will clean their tracks. Well, because of our time, that's our show for today's edition of Issues with JIDE. Special thanks to you, Babajide Kolade-Otitoju, for those insightful analyses, as always. People never thought that you always hit the nail on the head, even during this period.
Thank you, Brian. We'll do this again next week, God willing.
Great.
Significant. That's significant. And we hope that that support will continue.
Right, right, amazing. That's our show for today's edition of Issues with JIDE. Special thanks to you, Babajide, and thanks to you to our audience for joining us on every edition. You can see the program again anytime by subscribing to our YouTube channel, TVC News Nigeria. Click on the subscribe button to get the latest information. You can also follow us on our social media platforms at TVC News NG. I'm also at Ibrahim TVC News. On behalf of the rest of the team, I'm Ibrahim Shitat. See you again next edition. Bye for now.